Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. I'm Mark Goldbridge and I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked about this Newcastle transfer news as the January transfer window really kicks off. It's been so quiet, but Almiron is apparently leaving Newcastle to go to Saudi Arabia and Kieran Trippier could be going to Bayern Munich. What's going on? What is going on at Newcastle? Well, look, maybe we had the warning sign. Maybe this is what financial fair play is now. If you think about when Saudi Arabia took over Newcastle, many of us would have predicted quite rightly that this is just going to be another Man City. This is a team that's going to be super wealthy, the richest club in the world, so much money behind them, and they will just gradually get into the top four. They'll never leave. They'll go and win the league in 5 years. Look at Newcastle. They get in the top four. They're not in the top four now. They're selling some of their better players. What is the future for Newcastle if they can't flex their muscles the same way that Man City did? If they can't build that foundation on big sponsorship deals, pushing revenue up in odd ways, how are Newcastle going to survive then? How are they going to do this? Is this financial fair play teeth too much? Is it too much? Get your comments in on that, because the bottom line is Newcastle are super wealthy. They're super wealthy, but within the parameters of financial fair play, they're not. Their revenue is not going to be high enough to go and buy the Kylian Mbappés, and their wages and what they've spent on players is going to make it difficult to spend. That's what they said a couple of weeks ago. So Newcastle, Almiron, this is the shock story this morning. Almiron, first team player for Newcastle, in my opinion. Good player for Newcastle. I'm always impressed by him. People are saying he hasn't scored many goals this season. I'm still massively impressed by him. I think he's a good player. He's still only 29. Almiron off to Saudi Arabia and Trippier potentially off to Bayern Munich. And you look at it and you can see it quite clearly for what it is. This is about Newcastle selling to buy. This is about Newcastle having to operate in a way that is efficient and clever in a sense, because they can't do what Man City did. Financial fair play have got teeth now. You can't just go spend and get sponsorship deals in that might not be completely above board. Who knows? We'll find out about that. Newcastle are going to have to operate within their means regardless. I mean, basically, it doesn't matter who owns you anymore. It doesn't matter whether you've got the richest owner in the world or somebody who's not that rich. It's all about your own revenue, and this is where Newcastle are going to struggle. I'm really interested to see what people think about this, because is this Newcastle writing the season off? If you look at the Premier League table, which I can put up for you, basically, where Newcastle are at the moment, they are, 10th place with 29 points. They're 14 points off top four. They're not getting it, are they? They're not getting it. They're 11 points off fifth, even if that did get you a Champions League spot. They're not getting it, are they? So maybe this is actually just really intelligent. It's just not that palatable for us as football fans because it's so shocking. Maybe this is what's going to happen to football now, and maybe it shouldn't be happening. Maybe financial fair play is too severe. Maybe the limits need to go up by 50 million or 100. I'm not saying that financial fair play shouldn't exist, but when you've got Newcastle having to sell to buy when they're a rich club, I don't know whether have we gone too far? Who set these parameters of financial fair play? Do they need to go up a little bit? Do we need to knock it up by another 100 over 3 years? Because remember, apparently it's about what you've spent over 3 years. Maybe it needs to go up by a little bit more, because it just seems silly that Newcastle, a team that was in the Champions League, that is very wealthy and is trying to compete with the likes of the Man Cities and the Liverpools, etc., have to sell players now to buy. It just seems a bit weird to me. And people will be shouting and going, well, no, you've got to live within your means. But there is a flip side to that coin. I'm not saying that Newcastle should just be able to spend all the money from Saudi Arabia and buy every player. I mean, they probably could do that. You know, they could probably give it Erling Haaland 4 million a year and get him to come and play for Newcastle. You don't want that. But I do think that maybe allowing everybody to have another 100 million spend over 3 years might not be a bad idea, because Newcastle's argument will be, we can't boost our revenue without boosting our success. And we can't boost our success without bringing good players here and being better on the pitch and then generating more interest in Newcastle from sponsors and, players wanting to come here, fans wanting to support us, sponsors wanting to sponsor us. You're making it very difficult. And there is an inevitability about Newcastle as well, because they're so wealthy. They want to succeed, but they're having to do it within these very strict rules. I just think it's weird that they're having to sell Almiron and Trippier. And the reason they're doing it, by the way, let's be clear, They're doing it because they need to bring down their wage bill. They need to bring down their spend. They need to get some transfers in so that they can go and bring new players in. And the reason they're going to do it with Trippier is because he's probably on a big wage and he's 33. I don't think you want to get rid of Kieran Trippier if you're Newcastle because he's a leader and he's been very good for them this season. But if Bayern Munich want him and they can get 15 million for him, for a 33-year-old for Newcastle, this is probably looks good, really good on the books. And then you've got Livramento coming through. You don't need to replace Trippier. And then that 15 million in wage goes into other areas. And with Almiron at 29, you know, it's the Saudi thing, isn't it? You're not going to sell Almiron for 15 million to France or whatever like that. But if you can get 15, 20, 25, 30 million from Saudi Arabia, that money goes straight in for a 29-year-old. You've got Gordon, you've got people like Harvey Barnes. They might see a winger that's 22 years of age playing in Portugal that they think is going to be better than Almiron that they can get for less money. And I think that's what Newcastle are doing here. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting and it's really shocking because I think this is the sort of behaviour you'd expect maybe of a Liverpool, maybe of an Aston Villa. But Newcastle are so wealthy, and the fact that financial fair play is forcing them to sell first-team players to try and be compliant and build for the future. Look, in one way, it's not a bad thing, but in the other, it's just really, really shocking. And as I said, why are you doing it in January? I feel like I'm talking like Kermit the Frog. I've got something stuck in my throat. I think in relation to why they're doing it, I can 100% see the flip side to this. I can see the business side to this. Newcastle have to comply with financial fair play. They've got to do something about their revenue compared to their transfer spend on wages. The best way to do that is to reduce their wages and, sell some players. It's the same thing Man United have got to do. And if you're going to do that, you've got to sell people that people want. Well, Saudi Arabia want Almiron, he's 29, that reduces it. Bayern Munich want Trippier, he's 33, that reduces it. You can see why they're doing it, and why do it in January? Well, the season's over. The season's over for Newcastle, isn't it? They're, okay, they've still got the FA Cup to play for. They can still hope to climb the league. But Eddie Howe probably has had a chat with the CEO and the director of football and said, look, if the money's there now and we get it in this year, in January, it helps us for the summer. You're doing it within this financial year, within this season. The sooner you sell players, the better, really, because it's on the books, isn't it? So if we do it now, can we get to the end of the season without Trippier and Almiron? Yeah, we can. Livramento's there. We've got some other players as well. We can do it. We're not fighting for top four anyway. We're not in the Champions League. So losing Trippier and Almiron, yeah, we can fight for sixth without them. We can get that money in and we can plan for the summer. It's just surprising that Newcastle are going to have to do that. And maybe that's the flip side of having a good financial fair play. But the January transfer window is certainly kicking off, and I'm very interested to see what your thoughts are. I think there's three things for me. Are Newcastle right to do it, first of all? Secondly, do you understand why they're doing it now? And is it a sign that Newcastle can't emulate Man City? Because we wouldn't have seen Man City selling to buy at any point in the last 10 years. And thirdly, is financial fair play too severe when you've got an owner that wants to put money into a club that's going to increase sponsorship awareness, it's going to increase the fan base, it's going to bring better players to Newcastle, but they're restricted by these financial fair play limits? Do you think those limits should be lifted a little bit? Do you think that actually they might be a little bit too severe? Because it does seem a little bit unfair that Man City had 15 years where they could get away with what went off in relation to financial fair play didn't have any teeth. I'm not talking about what they've been accused of, but Man City had a lot more financial freedom than what Newcastle have got now. Is it fair to have one club that's had 15 years of getting away with it, and then now they're just a juggernaut, and everyone else can't emulate that and are restricted? Is that a level playing field, or will Man City now just dominate because they have got the revenue, they have got the expenditure and everything like that? Get your comments in below. Let me know what you think. But big business for Newcastle the other way. Speak to you in a bit. Smash a like and subscribe.